never know when you may be forced down in strange country, and you've probably left your base without sufficient food or water, expecting to have your next meal at your scheduled destination. You or your passengers may be compelled to leave your aircraft in the sky. Your worry then will be whether you are going to make a safe landing, and you'll doubtless have neglected to bring with you very much food which may have been in the plane. If you are unfortunate enough to land in an area where there are no people, in a place remote from your base or nearest known settlement, your plight is not going to be too happy a little later when you feel the pangs of hunger or your mouth becomes dry through thirst. You may find yourself in this type of country, forest, or in this type, jungle. Maybe you have headed for a beach. You are hungry and thirsty. But don't regard your case as hopeless, for actually food is all about you. This airman didn't know that food grew all around him. He has been wandering lost for some days, lacking food and adequate water. He is weakened and doesn't look like getting back to his base. This has happened to many men. Fellows who didn't bother to learn how they could live off the land, however remote they may have been from human beings and help. It may happen to you. In the first place, he hasn't got a knife. You always must carry a stout knife. And he hasn't any matches. And he doesn't know food when he sees it, the natural food growing on the trees and in the ground. Had he been able to exist for but a day or two longer, he might have been rescued. As it was, however, through lack of knowledge of the country perhaps, through carelessness in forgetting knife and matches, his fate was sealed. Finds his body. One more unfortunate airman who did not get back to his base. This is what did happen. This is what does happen. So let us now consider ways and means of preventing this happening to you, should you find yourself in similar circumstances. We cannot emphasize too much the necessity for carrying a knife. It is absolutely essential that you have one, and a stout one. You can't exist without it. So wear it always when you are flying or traveling on the ground. It may save your life. And another elementary precaution is, don't waste your matches. Matches may be vital. Be careful with them. Don't let them fall from your pocket in this way and later find you haven't got them. In a later part of this film, you will be shown how to make fire without matches. To exist in the tropics, as one observer puts it, all you need is wits and water. Retain the one and find the other. You may live for anything up to 3 weeks without food, but you can't live for more than about 3 days without water. Hence the search for liquids to replace the large amount you sweat out even without exertion is your first problem. You may find yourself in country like this with plenty of water. On the other hand, you may come down in places like this, where the creeks and riverbeds are dry and stony, not a drop of water. In the dry seasons in the north, there are many places where you can't find water in the creek beds. No, there is no water there. Let's go into the forest and see where water can be found. You find a medium-sized tree, one with plenty of top hamper for preference, smooth or rough bark. Cut it through about 3 feet from the base. You cut the top of it, and then you have just the stem left. Now pencil point the narrower end, that is, sharpen it as you would a pencil. The idea being to prevent the green bark from giving the fluid a nasty taste or irritating your lips. Now turn the tree upside down, get it over your shoulder, and watch the water drip from the pointed end. Good, fresh, sterile water, free from any taste, and enough sometimes to fill your cup or the top of your hat. This is a eucalypt tree, one of the gum trees, and almost any kind of eucalypt will yield drinking water. This is a water vine. It contains pints and pints of water, and it's found only in the jungle, not in the open gum forests. You must cut a section out of it, pencil point it as you saw with the gum tree, and then hold it up and put your hat beneath it. Look at that water. It's like turning on a tap. You'd never die of thirst where the water vine grows. The water vine has a stout base and contains many twists and curls, because it is a creeper and is found climbing up the tall jungle trees. There are other methods of finding water in country where rivers and ponds are dry. You can collect it from the rain showers in hat or ground sheet. Dig for it in dry sand along the creeks or behind a beach. You can find it in green coconuts, and you can obtain it also from the lawyer vine as shown here. The lawyer vine is one of the commonest plants of the jungle. The long climbing stems, and they're smooth except at the tips where their tooth may be up to several hundred feet in length. They contain an abundance of water, and the foliage of the lawyer vine is like that of a palm. Its vines are of stem, and it has several of them. In New Guinea and elsewhere in the southwest Pacific, it is known as rattan palm. We call it lawyer vine because once it gets its hooks into you, it won't let go. Pull down the long vines, cut out a section with your knife about 3 or 4 feet long, and water will drip from the end. Pure, sterile water. The fronds of the lawyer vine pump water from creeks and bogs right up the full length of those long vines. And in dry weather, when creeks and watercourses are empty, the plant becomes a reservoir for all to drink at who know its secret. Having seen how to procure water from water gum, water vine, and lawyer vine, you will now see how to obtain food. Food enough to sustain you for weeks and growing in every jungle and forest, and also cultivated by the natives in Australia and parts of the islands. Perhaps the most important single food plant known in the tropics is the coconut, for it provides both water and food. Coconut trees are familiar to everyone who visits the islands to the north of Australia, and it grows also in Australia as well, chiefly in coastal districts and on small islets along the Great Barrier Reef. The liquid in the center of a young coconut is a pleasant thirst-quenching drink. The coconut is green in its early stages and ripens to a medium brown. The best food is found in the ripe brown nut, the edible portion being the white flesh. Some native tribes exist almost wholly on coconuts. And there are few better or more sustaining foods in the bush than yams. Growing as a vine with large leaves, this plant produces tubers underground. They resemble potatoes and are rich in starch. The island yam can be distinguished by its heart-shaped leaf with 9 veins boldly marked and all rising from a common pit at the top of the leaf. The plant dies down in summer, so you might not always see it. The tubers continue to grow beneath the soil. They are dark brown or reddish objects, rough on the exterior and irregular in shape. Is pure white. To eat them, you put them in the ashes like a potato, and you'll find them excellent food. You can also boil them. And let us have a look at another source of good food, taro. Taro grows along the edges of creeks and in open marshy places, and can be distinguished by its large green pointed leaves and water lily habit of hugging the wet places. Up a plant from the mud, scrape the dirt from the bulb-like root, and you find the raw food. But beware, taro must be cooked before being eaten, well cooked, for it contains an irritant juice which can be destroyed only by cooking. Bake it in the ashes like the yams, and take care that you don't gather a similar plant by mistake. The similar plant is Canjavoy, and is identical with taro in appearance and growth habit, but is harmful to all but the strongest stomach. How can you distinguish taro from Canjavoy? This is simple. See that purple spot in the center of the leaf? That is the hallmark of taro. If a similar plant has no spot on the leaf, then it is Canjavoy. Don't forget that. is cassava. Its tubers yield the most sustaining food. The plant is a semi-shrubby perennial with cylindrical roots varying in size up to 3 feet long and 2 or 3 inches in diameter. The tubers, however, contain prussic acid and must first be washed and should not be stored longer than 2 days. The poison may also be removed by long boiling. The best method of preparing cassava is by grating it, then placing the grated material in a cloth and washing and squeezing out the liquid, which dilutes and removes the acid. This grated material is tapioca and should be boiled for about 20 minutes before using. Cassava is used widely for food and does not grow wild. It is cultivated in native gardens. This palm-like plant growing in the scrub is wild ginger. The plant may be pulled out of the ground and the young reddish-tipped shoots eaten raw or cooked. They have a distinctive ginger taste. The shoots are moist and fleshy and grow round the base of the plant among the roots. The red tips just show above the surface of the ground. And of course you can eat sugarcane. In Australia it is cultivated on a large scale in extensive fields as shown here. Fields literally cut out of the green jungle which still covers the hills and mountains in the background. Through the islands, however, you will find it cultivated in native gardens and even growing in its wild state. Sugarcane is sustaining and also is a good thirst quencher, but remember, always spit out the pith. Don't swallow it. The juice is sweet and refreshing. These fruits, found on the floor of the jungle, are known as wild walnuts. They are brown and about the size of a billiard ball, and unlike the walnuts you buy in shops, they are solid inside. You must first bake them in the ashes to soften the flesh. You also need a singlet or a piece of cloth in which to wash the flour. After baking them, you take them to a stream and crush them with stones like this. Then, when you've powdered them well, put them in the singlet or cloth and wash the material thoroughly, squeezing out the juices to get rid of any irritant which may be left undestroyed. The small blue berries that you saw alongside the walnuts were quandongs, a good food to be picked up beneath the jungle trees and eaten raw. The next few views will show you various mixed fruits and greens, some of which may be cooked, and they must be cooked, while others can be eaten in their raw state. This is Pandanus, wrongly called breadfruit. The tree is exceedingly common in the tropics and is also known as screw palm. Often it grows with many strut-like stems, and the leaves are long and narrow with sharp saw-like teeth all along them. The large yellow or red oval-shaped fruit is not wholly edible. You eat only the inner bases of the seed containers, and of course the seeds themselves are nutritious, though rather difficult to extract. Still, they are food for a hungry man. And did you notice that that lost airman in the early part of the film walked beneath these trees and failed to appreciate the fact that food was within his reach? Food that might have saved his life. The growing shoots of a young Pandanus also make good food eaten raw. are not hungry, you will probably relish asparagus. If you happen to have gone without food for a day or so, you will lose no time with your knife if you should find a patch of grass tree, for here is food, and tasty too. You might call it synthetic asparagus, because it tastes so much like the real thing, and you eat it raw. It is the common grass tree which grows in all parts of Australia, south as well as north. You cut into the top of a stem to get at the creamy-colored bases of the foliage, and you bite it off until you reach the green and tougher parts of the leaf stalks. Try it next time you're out. The grass tree has other uses. One of these is demonstrated here. If you are lost and want to send up a smoke signal to attract the notice of a plane, set a light to the dead underparts of the foliage. Incidentally, this dead foliage, protected from the weather by the green overcovering, will give you dry tinder for a fire even on the wettest day.